All right, everybody. How are you guys? I love the energy. Thank you guys so much for being here. 1 second while I grab my clicker. Well, I hope you guys did have a chance to grab some food, some drinks, connect with each other. I hope you had a chance to take some pictures in the photo booth. If you haven't already, please, you're welcome to do that after the show. My name is Hawa Otori. I'm the president and founder of Founders International Network. It is my honor to welcome all of you to our launch event tonight. I really love this energy, you guys. This is fantastic. And also to our first ever live podcast show of the Building Black podcast with Hawa Otori. So, what do? Our mission at the organization is to really tell inspiring stories of Black founders from around the globe. You know, after spending some time in Silicon Valley, I just really wanted to tell impactful stories. So one of the ways we do that is through our show, the Building Black podcast. And already it's been such a journey. We've been able to tell stories of founders here in the US, the UK, Kenya, Nigeria, Brazil. And they're building really great businesses in various industries like beauty, luxury watches, ag tech. I believe one of our very first guests is here tonight, as well as Marcel Benson, who is an early guest of the Benson Watch Company. So our very first guest, Mari from Beauty of Mariama, who happens to be my stylist. I think she'll be here later tonight. So Mari, Marcel, thank y'all so much for sharing your stories with us so early on in our journey and for being here with us tonight. Season 3 will be coming out in June, so we're really excited about that and hope you'll join us on our journey and become avid listeners. I also want to thank, before we jump into things, my team. So Kevin Edwards, who cannot be here with us tonight, Mela Higas, Osheza Otori. Special thanks to Jonathan Strickland over at Ill Sounds, who's over at the sound booth right now. Rome Shaw of Busy Booth, shout out to you, Rome, making me look good. I appreciate that. And also to folks like Cecilia Ruiz and also Edgar Lopez. Shout out to our supporters, and thank you to them at the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation for supporting our journey in this nonprofit organization. And last but not least, to the Gathering Spot for hosting us tonight. Amber, Melvisha, thank you so much for your partnership. Tonight would not be possible without it, so I really appreciate you. And for all of you for being here tonight. So because tonight is about film, gaming, and comics, I thought it would be only right to share our origin story of how we got started. So during the pandemic a few years ago, when we were all kind of sitting at home, baking bread, whatever you were doing, I wanted to find a creative outlet to tell impactful stories. And as I mentioned earlier, I spent some time in Silicon Valley, and you know, the stats of less than 1% of venture capital money flowing to Black founders was very disconcerting to me. And I kind of wanted to show the range of Black entrepreneurship, right? So there are folks who are VC backed, but there are other people who are doing really incredible things through grants, through crowdfunding, and through other innovative pathways. So let's tell the full range of that and show the diverse breadth of what people are doing to build despite the lack of resources available to them. And so tonight we wanted to bring our work to you guys live, and we are really excited to be featuring Shequeta Smith, Queen of Comics, master storyteller, and also the founder of Sherocomics, a multimedia company focusing on film, gaming, and comics. So y'all, please join me in welcoming Shequeta to the stage. Before we jump into the conversation, I kind of wanted to give you the rules of engagement for tonight. No, you didn't have any pre-reads because it's going to be like HBS case study style. You didn't miss anything. But what we're going to do is we're going to give you some scenarios. We want to hear from you guys, so feel free to shout out your answers and engage in the conversation. And then once we hear what you think of the scenarios, we will then hear from Shequeta about how she handled that particular situation.
Yeah.
How does that sound, you guys? Great. You guys are fantastic. I trust y'all, but also I gotta test y'all. So let's do a quick test. So imagine you're a young kid back in the 90s. It's a Sunday morning, the sun is out, the breakfast is going, and the Sunday newspaper has just been delivered. And I'm assuming everybody in the room knows what newspapers are. Okay, I'm seeing nods, so that's positive. So what newspaper section are you guys going for?
Comics.
Oh wow, everybody's going for the comics. Shequeta, what were you going for?
Well, my grandmother would deliver the comics to me, so that's how I wrote.
I also was going for the comics on Sunday. Why? Because it was like in print and color. It was the only day it came in color, so it was a very exciting day for me. Right? All right, so it looks like you guys passed the test. So we're gonna jump into our first case study. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I will go ahead and read it. So imagine you're the CEO, founder, and creative behind a multimedia company that focuses on comics, films, and gaming. You produce 2 graphic novels for an adult audience and decide to produce a short film. To promote all of this work, you decide to go on a tour in Korea, where the inspiration for all of this work started. It's not just promotional, it's also intended to be filmed for a documentary. You're super excited, you have a small crew ready to go, but then your initial funding falls through. So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna make it happen, or do you take the L and stay home? What are you guys doing? Whoa, that was mixed. That was mixed. Okay, I'm hearing more make it happens. I like that. We're go-getters. I love that. So before, Shequeta, this was a real life situation,
yes.
Right? So before you tell us what you actually did, could you explain why Korea and what that meant to you in terms of going back?
Okay, so I went to Korea in 2000. 2020. 2000.
Yep, 2024.
24 years ago. When I came back from Korea, I'll put it up here. I feel like I'm too loud. Okay. When I came back from Korea, I had this idea for my story of Raven Choi. So I always had a special connection in Korea. So this trip was kind of me going back to Korea with the book that I created from the first time. This was 18 years later. And so that's what the trip was about, kind of going over there, showing them my company. And it was a litmus test to see, are they ready for a black woman on the cover of a comic book? Are they going to accept that? Are they going to accept me coming back with this book and this story? So that's what it was about.
No, I love that. And in our sort of earlier conversations, Shequeta, you had told me the specifics of getting to Korea the first time,
yes.
And kind of the unique circumstance around that. So I'd love for you to share that.
Oh yeah, see, I want to hear about that. So the first time I went to Korea, I was in school at NC State. It was a newspaper, the campus newspaper. It was presented as a study abroad trip. So I was like, oh, this will be great. I always wanted to go to Japan because of Nintendo. I knew what they were doing over there. I was like, I need to go for Nintendo, Super Mario. But Korea is pretty close, so let me go see what's happening in that part of Asia. So I jumped in, feet first, no brain, not thinking, and get to Korea with these people, and they end up being a cult. They were the Moonies. So Reverend Sun Young Moon, the people that all got married at the same time and all that, and they were switching babies and switching partners and stuff. That's who I was with. And so, yeah, it's just funny things. Funny things happen sometimes. And so what ended up happening was we were all just kind of I was like, y'all, this is a cult. And it was me and a lot of college students from different colleges that were around North Carolina and beyond. And they were just like, nah, this ain't a cult. I'm like, all right, we're going to see about that. So they take us out in the middle of nowhere to this big, beautiful building, and they were just like, oh, yeah, you're right, this is a cult. So we get there. They bring us in, we talk about love, they're holding hands, and there's all these people from America there. There's all these judges and mayors and stuff. So people that have money, that's where our government officials go. So they were there, so I was just like, well, this is interesting. This might be a movie. And the next day, I was like, I'm not going back with those people. So I'm a rebel. So I talked to some other people. It's like, we're going to pretend to be sick. And this is the thing, like, I tell people, you don't want me to be a part of your cult because I will make people think for themselves. And so that's what I did. I found a group of people, my tribe. So we skipped out on them. We pretended to be sick. And then when they left, we went shopping in Seoul for like a whole day. And then we came back. They were pissed off, but we didn't care. And so the next day, we went shopping with them. And so that was my whole thing with Korea. When I came back, I was like, what if I was raised here? It was just like they were so nice to me. I kind of thought about this story of Raven Choi, about a black girl from America that's adopted by a Korean family after her parents are killed. Her father was in the military. And so that's where this whole thing started for me, was that trip to Korea with a cult.
So that trip happened.
Yes.
24 years ago.
Yes.
So fast forward to now with your company.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the scenario, what did you decide to ultimately do, right, when your initial funding fell through for that tour?
So yeah, in 2018, I was supposed to be going to Korea. I had already booked the comic convention. The U.S. Army wanted me to come to their base to do a book signing. So I was like, okay, this is going to be great. And I had someone that was going to give me the $15,000 that I needed to do it. And then like a week before, it was like, oh, they stopped talking to me. They stopped answering my calls. I was just like, okay, what's going to happen here? And so I went online, and my credit was pretty decent. So I was like, well, I applied for some loan, and I got it for $15K. So I was like, okay, this is happening. And it's the craziest thing, like literally. We didn't even have a DP up until the day before we were about to leave to go to the plane. I had to buy his ticket the day before. And it was a guy that I'd never met. He was Korean. And he showed up to the airport, and we were on our way to go shoot a documentary for a week in the foreign country and do book signings at the Comic-Con and at the Army base, and it happened.
That's incredible. So you said, you were like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to go ahead and take out this loan.
Yeah.
So when you did that, because like when I think loans, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's kind of a big undertaking.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about it when you did it?
I was out of my mind. It's like literally, like I feel like if you're doing a business, if you're a small business owner, you have to be crazy to do something like this. Because it's like, yeah, it was like I had to put my big girl panties on. So this is one of those moments in life where it's like, the red pill, blue pill. What are you going to do here? Are you going to stay here and just kind of just chill and not follow your dream? I mean, this is 18 years since you've been to Korea. You've been wanting to do this. You're taking cameras with you. Are you in or you out? And so once I applied for that loan and it ran on my credit, it was like, this has to happen. So by any means necessary.
Sometimes you just have to have that mentality, right?
Yeah. You gotta be crazy.
I'm sorry?
You gotta be crazy.
You gotta be a little crazy.
Yes.
So since taking out that loan and, I guess it's 6 years later, how have you been continuing to fund your business and keep it going?
I don't know, I'm making sure nothing
She's
crazy is
like,
going on. I have been bootstrapping. So back then, I still worked a day job. That was, like, interestingly enough, like, going to Korea was that was my jump out of corporate America. I didn't realize it at the time. I went on a leave or whatever, and when I came back, they gave my job away. So it was like, oh, okay. And so that's kind of how my escape was from corporate America. But since then, it's just been bootstrapping, doing crowdfunding campaigns. The past couple of years since the pandemic, it was like comic conventions too. That's how I was kind of funding my other books. So when that all went down with 2020, it was like, okay, let me start applying to grants. And so that's when I've been able to kind of finance things through grants and like accelerators that I've been a part of. So last year I was a part of Drew Holiday's accelerator, so that was really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So grants, accelerators, just trying to find other avenues to keep.
And trying to be profitable. So
very
selling
important.
Books and
very
selling
important.
T-shirts, and now we've made it to where we are with the game. So that was, because gaming is so profitable, I wanted to get there. So it was like we did films, we done comic books. I wanted to create enough IP to where I could use those to make them into games.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have to go and get someone else's to make a game out of, because that's very expensive. Right. So if I own 100% of the IPs, then I can do this game, and if it blows up, it's me.
Right.
And so that's the whole thing, is to get to the games. And so now I'm at the game. So I'm like one grant away from doing the game, and then once the game comes out, we'll see how it goes. And really, if you can ship a game, so you may not know this, women make up 50% of the gaming industry, pretty much. They play games 50% of the time. But there's only been 8 games since 1985 that feature a woman as the main character. So there's this huge market, and they don't care. Like, I've met with people at Epic Games and other places just asking questions, and I'm like, oh yeah, you guys like gonna be looking to do some games with women? And they're just like, no. And I'm just like, like what? And like, no, we don't have to, because they make so much money making games for men, and they don't care about women. They don't have to, because they're making $300 billion pretty much. So I'm like, if y'all are gonna leave the billions on the table, I'm not. So that's where we're at. We're like one game. Hopefully it's going to be a hit game, but even if it's not, you having a ship game gets you so much respect in the gaming world, and it brings investors to you because they see the vision of what you've done, because it's so bleak that even releasing a game, like I have a prototype right now, and that gets me some respect, but once you ship a game and it's out there for people to play, then that puts you on a different level in this world, on the playing field,
Yeah, so on that note, as we're still talking about games, so our second scenario for you guys is building a team, right? So Shequeta was just talking about getting into the gaming industry and building a game. You also dropped some stats. So yes, the overall gaming industry is worth roughly about $250 billion.
Oh, it's more than that. There's all kinds of
There are all types
numbers.
of figures.
I go for the top one. Because if you put in the licensing and all of that, because that's what I'm planning to do, then it's $347 billion.
$347 billion. All right. A lot of money.
It is.
So imagine you guys, you want to get into this $300+ billion industry. Your company has produced and released short films and graphics already. And to complete the trifecta, you're a soon-to-be billion-dollar company. You want to embark on creating a mobile game. But after spending some time in the comic book space, you're concerned about the lack of diversity you may come across also in gaming as a potential barrier to building an inclusive team to be able to bring this game into the world. So for the audience, what factors should you consider when hiring? Did I hear someone say something? I heard something. Experience. Anything else, you guys? Female. Okay, you want women? A woman looking to hire a woman? Vision. Someone who has vision. I love that.
Someone interested in diversity.
Someone who's already interested in being part of an inclusive team. Anyone else?
A gamer.
Someone who has experience with gaming. Grit. I love that. Have to have. As we know, as we've been hearing, grit is super key to building and being part of a team, especially a startup. Anything else? Was that
Passionate, flexible?
Being passionate, being super flexible. Love all of those responses. So you've talked a lot about like the diversity in comics. Could you speak a little bit more about your experience in the comic industry and how you thought that would relate to gaming now that you're building in that space?
Well, in the comic book industry, like I started this journey maybe like 8 years ago. So in 2014 is when we first started working on the books. 2016 is when we started releasing them. What I noticed about comics, of course, all these industries that I'm in are male-dominated. So it's run by men. In comics, though, there weren't a lot of women. Well, the reason why I started my comic book company, there's always a reason. You always have a reason why you start your business. So I went to see Iron Man in 2008. I left the theater like beast mode, like, yo, like this is Iron Man, like this was so good. Like, I knew what Marvel was doing. I knew they were about to make a play. They were about to go on a run. I saw that. I knew it was coming. And I was just like, all right, where do black women fit into all of this? I want to go see some Sheros, doing kicking ass and stuff. Oh, can I say ass? I guess
sure.
I said it. But I wanted to go see some Sheros. And so I was like, all right, let me go see what's at the comic book shop. I know about comics, but I don't really know who the black characters are. So I went in the comic shop, and if you've ever gone to the comic shop, those guys know exactly where everything is. They know everything about comics. They're the biggest nerds. So I walked in and asked the guy, like, hey, show me some books with some black women on the cover of them. And he was like, oh. And so I was just like, I just saw Iron Man, so I know it's got some black chicks up in here. And he's just like, So he showed me Black Panther. No women in that, not in the old Black Panther. Like Shuri didn't show up until 2005. And so he showed me Heroes for Hire, because Misty Knight was on the cover with other women. And then he showed me maybe Vixen, who was like a part, they're all a part of something. Storm was a part of the X-Men, and then Vixen was a part of the Justice League. So it was like, okay, who's by theyself? I want to see her kicking butt, booty by herself, like Pam Grier or somebody. He's just like, yeah, we ain't got that. And so I knew there's something's missing in this industry. They don't have that. And so I was like, okay, I knew I had the story of Raven Choi. When I came back from that trip to Korea, I'd already wrote it as a movie. It never sold. They got me meetings in Hollywood, so I knew Hollywood wasn't trying to put no black woman in no action movie. So I was like, I can turn that into a graphic novel. So 2008 happened. I was like, okay, that was in the back of my head. So I was like, well, let me go shoot some more films. So I started shooting some short films, and then 2014, it was just like, okay, it's time to do this. And so that's how that happened, where I picked up the pen. That's how I got into comics. But the industry, when I came in, there weren't a lot of women. Marvel hadn't even hired a black woman to write a comic book yet. They didn't hire a black woman until maybe 6 months after I launched Sherocomics. So I don't know if I was part of that influence.
I think so.
Or what happened.
I think so.
But they didn't think to hire a black woman until 2000, maybe the end of 2016. I think it was Nyla Magruder. There's this whole debate online about who's the first black woman. So it was either Nyla Magruder or Roxane Gay. It's between those two. But yeah, so it was just like they finally started hiring a black woman. They released Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur maybe the same year I released Raven Choi. And so it was alienating. I would go to comic conventions and I'm the only black woman there, or sometimes the only woman there. And so I thought gaming was going to be similar, and it's not similar. So
How is it different?
okay, so gaming is different because it's such a profitable industry, and it's been around for so long, since like the 70s, 80s. Jerry Lawson was like one of the first black men. He created the cartridge that we used to play with Nintendo. So there's been black people in this industry because there's real jobs to be had. In the comic book industry, the main two, Marvel and DC, they've been around since the 50s and 60s, so they weren't hiring black people. So if you didn't get hired by Marvel and DC, you didn't have a job. Gaming is different. If you have a skill and you can go in and work for this company, then there's a job for you. So there's a lot more black people. It's not a lot, but it's enough to where it feels like a community. So I went to the Game Developers Conference a few months ago. I thought I was going to be alienated like comics, but no, they had a whole black day. They were having panels. It was all these black people, and I was just like in heaven, like, oh my gosh, there was a community, there's women. I'm just like, hey, I'm like hugging people I don't know.
Oh.
I'm like excited. They're like looking at me. I'm just like, wow, like y'all actually have a community. Like I've been in comics. I didn't realize I was lonely. It was like I hadn't had,
Yeah.
I mean, there were people like, but they're kind of coming up after me. So I'm like mentoring or just like telling them the ropes or whatever. So this thing is like, they're telling me stuff. I'm having someone to go to ask advice on things about how to get into gaming. So it's way different.
So when it comes to your hiring strategy for gaming, how are you approaching that?
Okay, so for the hiring strategy for gaming, because I'm so new, and I've met with the different people that I met at GDC, and so really it's about finding the best people, the people who built a game similar to my game. I've looked at possibly hiring people, that 3D artists or this artist or whatever, but from the advice that I've gotten, it's best for me to find a small developer that's already established and already has their team, and then bring them on to build my game. So that's what I'm looking at right now. Like I said, there were black people here and there that I met, but there's not really a black company that has all of their team together that's building games for others. A lot of the companies built for themselves. So for me at this point, it's about whoever has a game similar to mine that's going to be able to build my game, because the most important thing is for me to ship this. After I get that shipped, and especially if it's successful, then I can come back and hire more black people or more diverse people or bring them into the whole fold. But right now, it's just me finding whoever's going to get the game done, because you can hire some people that say they know what they're doing, they may have a good resume, but they can come in and mess up your game and not build it nicely. So it's like whoever the best person is what I'm looking for, who can get it done and get it done quickly.
Yeah, whoever has the skills.
The skills,
to be able to put your.
Because we ain't got a lot of money, so it's like, and these games aren't cheap. So it's like, for me, it's like whoever is gonna build my game, and whoever is gonna have a good attitude about it. I'm really particular about that on my sets and in my comics. It's like, I only work with the best people. So whenever people come to ask me for somebody, they know they know it's going to be
Yeah.
somebody good. So it's like I'm like looking right now at different, whether it's Canada. I mean, that's the thing. Gaming is so international. It can, like the guy who built my prototype was in Pakistan. So it's like I would like to find somebody in America, but whoever the guy that I was recommending is in Canada. So I may end up hiring their company because they're all together. So we'll see.
Yeah, going for the best wherever you can find
Yes.
them. And hopefully they are good team players. I think that was something that one of the
Yeah.
audience members yelled out earlier. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And so for our last and final case study, breaking in. So we've talked a lot about the industry in terms of comics as well as games. And so we're going to go back to comics for a little bit in this particular scenario. So the global comic book industry is a bit more niche than gaming. I think it's worth roughly about $16 billion. The industry is dominated by major players, as you've already mentioned, like, I guess now Disney with Marvel, DC Entertainment with DC Comics, I think Warner Brothers as well, just to name a few. So as a startup company in this scenario, you're competing for the same readership and viewership as these giant players. And, you know, seeing as you've already released graphic novels for an adult audience, you now want to target the kids market.
Yeah.
And getting to children in terms of comic books and the stories you want to tell. So for the audience, how do you push past all of that noise to market to your product and your services to capture this audience for the kids market? How would you guys go about doing that?
Go direct to consumer.
Direct to consumer?
Brand partnership with Lil Van Van.
Listen. She could come up with like some kind. That was, for those who missed that, that was a brand partnership with Lil Van Van, which I like that. She can come up with a little dance. It will go viral. Great all-around comprehensive strategy around that. So thank you for that. Anyone else? All right. So you just released your latest.
Yeah, last year.
Towards kids.
Yeah.
So could you talk to us about that and tell us more about what that comic is and the story?
So Raven Choi, that was the adult comic. So I released 5 books in that. But at Comic Cons, parents will always come up. Raven Choi is violent, it's bloody. There's cursing, all kinds of stuff. So it's not friendly for kids. Maybe 13 plus. There's one guy in Chicago. He bought it for his kids, and I was like, dude, it's like 13 plus. He said, my kids live in Chicago. They don't care. So some kids get it.
Shout out to everyone in Chicago, amazing city.
Yes.
Summertime Shy is coming up. Love
Yes.
Chicago.
And so I wanted to do something for the parents that were asking me for, a book for their kids. So it was like, there's always a prequel. And Raven, in the book, she goes to Korea when she's 5 years old. That's when she moves over there and she's adopted. So it's like, well, there's a whole world. Like in the Raven Choi book, we start when she's 5 and then we skip to she's 25 in the book. So I was like, okay, there's a whole world here that we can go and explore. And so I thought about it for a long time on how we were going to draw it. And so I knew manga was just like blowing up. So I was just like, okay, I want to draw it in the manga style.
For those that don't know what manga is, could you
Okay, so
explain
manga is Japanese comics, pretty much. So it's a style of the way they draw things. To me, the characters look white, but they claim they're Japanese, like Sailor Moon and Naruto, and Pokemon is a manga as well. So there's some black people in mangas, but there's not really any black people on the cover. So it's another whole thing where it's like there's some not some paint. Put some paint where it ain't is where I can kind of come in and do that. And so put a little black girl and draw her as a chibi style, and so release that. And so I started working on that right before the pandemic, and then that kind of stopped everything. And then last year it was like we did a crowdfunding campaign at the beginning of February for Black History Month, and that was successful. And so I was like, okay, so trying to switch over to a different market here. And so this one's a little bit different because with adults, it's like you have to be interested in comics to buy that book. With a kid's book, the adult doesn't have to care about comics, but they're buying it for their grandkid or they're buying it for their teenager or whatever, so it's a bigger market. And then it just so happens that now kids have kind of rediscovered comics. They're really into graphic novels, but there's not a lot of graphic novels that have been done for kids because they've been focused on adults for so long. And so perfect timing. And so come through with this book. It's about 5-year-old Raven. She's growing up in Korea. She goes to school. And of course, black kids, all Korean school, there's going to be some static, some smoke. So a little girl starts picking at her about her Afro puff. They get into a fight. They don't know how to fight. So they end up in Hapkido classes, and they become best friends. And so I wanted to do something for the kids market. I wanted to do something for little girls my company's Shero, so it's for Sheros that are young and old. So if now I have that market, the idea, or the goal is to get little black girls into comics and to get little boys to read this comic as well, because this is a martial art, so I think they would come as well. What a lot of people don't know is that comics help kids learn how to read, especially boys. A lot of times when they're reading prose, like Harry Potter or whatever, they can read the book, but they can't visualize what's happening. So when they read comics, it actually helps them visualize and read, and they learn big words and words that they may not be learning in school. And it's just like a movie to them. So it's an avenue where I'm trying to work that right now, to where, like you said, trying to sell in the comics or trying to partner. What's the little girl's name?
Van Van?
Yeah, I've never, my family talks about her, but I have never seen.
You have to
any
check
of
her
stuff.
out.
I will.
She's fantastic.
Okay.
I think she was just performing at like the Kennedy Honors,
Oh, wow.
something or other.
Okay, I do need to partner with her.
Listen, Lil Van Van is doing big things.
Okay.
It's incredible.
So it's like, as you were saying, like as far as competing with Marvel and DC, I don't want to say it's easy. It's not easy, but I can move in ways that they can't.
Yeah.
Because they're so big and so like historic and like just archaic that they're stuck in their ways. So they're still stuck in the 60s with Superman and those characters. So there's no entry point for a lot of young people to get into their comics, because the story started back in the 50s.
Yeah.
And I mean, they try to do new installments of it, but it still doesn't like resonate. It's not futuristic. It's not now. It's not present, modern.
So what I'm hearing is you're sort of setting yourself aside from kind of the established companies in terms of the characters that you're building, the stories that you're telling.
Yeah.
So could you talk to us a little bit more about, outside of the stories that you're telling and these characters are very different than what you're seeing coming out of these companies, like how are you sort of breaking through that noise? Like what strategy are you doing to get to those kids and, as you said, like the parents who are buying for whoever that young child is in their lives? So how are you kind of reaching them?
My newest strategy, well, this was always a strategy from the beginning, was to go right after the schools. The schools are there. My book is kid-friendly. My book, like I say, is educational. So what I've been doing is going into schools. I've been in LAUSD schools doing comic book workshops. The kids love it. I go in and talk about what I do with Shero, and then I show them how to do a page with me. They write a page with me. So that kind of gives me an entryway into the school system. Now that I have that type of respect, then I'm going to superintendents like, hey, my book is about martial arts, my book is about bullying, my book helps kids learn how to read, and we're actually translating it into Korean as well. There's some Korean language, dual language schools here, so we can use that book to help them learn how to read in Korean or different languages or Spanish.
That's incredible.
And so I'm into superintendents asking them to buy it for their district. So I'm here looking at superintendents here in California and in North Carolina where I'm from. So that's where I'm starting with. And as soon as I get one, then I'm in DC or Jersey like, hey, LA County, this superintendent bought it for their whole school system. Can you buy it for yours? And so there's going to be 4 books in this series. We're working on book 2 right now. So that's what I'm going to keep doing, because that's the best way to sell it. Like comic shops, there's only one distributor that sells into all the comic shops, and they're pretty much, they only distribute Marvel. DC, they did distribute them, but now they don't anymore. So when I went to them with my book, this is some coded racism if you've never heard it before. They told me that my artist needed more work. Now, I don't know if you've seen some of the books that Marvel and them put out, but I'm just like, yeah, that ain't the answer. That's not the right answer, dog. And so I was just like, I knew what it was. Like, they're not going to distribute your book. That's the easy way for them to be racist and to say no to you or whatever about some stupid stuff. My books I've sold over 7,000, almost 10,000 books at this point. So it's just like, yeah, my artist didn't need no more work. My artist is great. So why is you giving me that excuse? And so you have to think of other ways outside of that to distribute your books, because the big 2 run this distribution type of thing, so you can't really go that route.
Right. So, just thinking of creative ways to kind of, get to that audience that you're looking for. And obviously you're doing great work already with the schools. And sometimes, as you said, all you need is that one person to say yes, and then the rest will follow. So before we get into Q&A from the audience, Shequeta, is there anything that you want to say, talk about, that we didn't cover today that you think you want to share with the audience?
What do I want to say?
She's like, where do I start?
Where do I start? No, it is like, where do I start? Well, I will say that Right now, we're finishing the documentary that we started back in 2018. So hopefully, maybe next year, maybe Black History Month, it'll be released somewhere. Like right now, we have like 6 more people to interview, and then we'll be in post-production. So definitely, follow me, check out my website, which I'm sure we'll go over at the end of this. But this is a documentary.
You can name
like
drop
you've
your
never
website
seen.
right now. Go ahead.
It's called the Shero Universe. So it's about Black women in comics. We're talking about Pam Grier. We've interviewed DMC, Simone Missick, probably Sonequa Martin Green. We're going to interview her pretty soon to talk about Star Wars, Catwoman, about Pam Grier, Friday Foster, just like all of the Black women who were either comic book characters or the characters that were in comics that were written by white men for so long. And we talk about Jackie Arms, who was the very first Black female cartoonist, her history kind of went, they don't really pay attention to us. So no one knew about her for a really long time until like recent years. There was a biography done on her. And so we now find out about the things that she did. Like the FBI was like after her.
Wow.
Like a lot of people don't know about, because her comics were talking about racism in the 30s. And so, yeah, this documentary is going to be something you've never seen before. It's going to be really funny. And like, I just feel like it's a love letter to Black women. They put out stuff with us, and it's always so negative and just downtrodden. So it's like I wanted to do something uplifting, something that you can watch with your whole family, and something that you can rewatch and still learn educational things and laugh at things and see all the crazy stuff that I went through on this tour. Like literally, like in Indonesia, there was a earthquake before I got there.
Oh, wow.
There was a monsoon when I got there.
Oh, my goodness.
There was a plane crash before I left. So I don't know if you saw the plane that crashed into the ocean in Indonesia. We were there. So my mom was blowing up my phone. We were leaving on the plane the next day. And so, yeah.
Stop it.
So that's in the documentary, just like how we were walking around like, ooh, okay.
All right, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, what's going to happen? But I don't know if I have an Indonesian relative or something, but I felt so calm and so centered in Indonesia. I kept telling people, like, I don't know what it is. I don't feel any kind of nervousness. I don't feel nothing. And when they got on the plane the next day, I wasn't there. My producer and my DP, they were freaking out because they're about to go get on the plane after one just went in the ocean. And we saw the planes that were like the same brand or the same company. They were like sitting there. I was just like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And they found nobody alive.
That must have been, that's so terrible and so tragic. But
yeah.
I'm glad that you were able to make it out of that situation.
Yeah.
So
it was a very spiritual trip.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely look out for the documentary, you said, probably around
hopefully next year.
Black History Month, next month, next year.
That's the thing. Like I say, like I'm not Marvel in them, so I can kind of do it myself. But I would like for it to be like on a Netflix or one of the bigger. And they don't have anything like it, so I think it will end up somewhere like that. But I have the option where if they don't want it, I can do what I want to do with it. And because I have so much footage, we're going to do a 2-hour, a regular traditional documentary. Then we're going to break it out and do episodes of like a docu-series so you can see the whole thing.
The whole story.
The whole story.
Love that. Really excited for that to come out.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the audience for some Q&A. Do you guys have questions for Shequeta? And we can, I guess, run the mic.
Okay.
Any questions?
Oh, wait, he's coming.
Oh. I can.
You want to?
I can just say it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Or do we need-
Go ahead. Say it and then we can repeat
recording.
it.
You said that there's 3 comics in the children's book series. What's your timeline for all of those?
Whenever I have enough money to do them. Well, at this point, it's like once a year. So like the last one was done in June of last year. We released it. So this year, probably like August when they come back to school. Because I have my own comic convention. I don't think I mentioned that. So Shirocon is supposed to happen in August as like a back to school event here in LA. And so the book, I'm trying to plan the book release around the comic convention so we can sell the book there and hopefully bring in some little Karate Kid girls to kind of do a demonstration and kind of make it a real fun experience. So it's really about the funding. So the money I get from grants or whatever, it kind of helps me put the books together. And once I'm starting to sell them into the superintendents, then I can do all 4 of them. Because that's the thing, you have to have a thicker type of graphic novel before you can go in the Barnes & Noble or any of those types of stores. So I'd have to do 4 books before I can get to that level.
I saw Mike. You have a question?
He has some microphone.
Well, we're running the mic to Mike.
Thank you. The question is, have you given up completely on angel/VC funding. We know that a lot of times it's hard to get funding as a black founder, and also because a lot of times, especially if you mention comics, you might not automatically think of scalability. But when you mention the $300 billion gaming industry and the correlation between you creating that IP and having the potential to blow up in that way, have you, going back to the question, have you given up on VC, or have you tried to articulate that roadmap to a VC, and have you had any success with that?
I'm trying to avoid it, actually, interestingly enough. It's a fork in the road that I'm at right now. Because with the gaming, I do believe I can pull VC money. I do believe that what I've already built, they kind of see that. I'm actually in the running for this whole thing that Pepperdine does called the most fundable companies. So I'm like a semi-finalist in this. And so if I get to the finalist stage, they bring me in and put investors in front of my company saying, this chick has it, you need to invest in her company. So then there'll be a decision I have to make. But taking money from people, it's like, I feel like I'll be working for someone, and there's only certain people that I want to work for. So like if the VC money comes from Serena Williams, I'm for it. If the VC money comes from like some old white guy, I don't know about that, because I came out of corporate America, so I ain't trying to go back in there. And if I can make the game a hit game, then I'll be profitable, so I won't have to go that route. So if I can stay out of it, then I would like to. If I have to use it, then I will, because the Roblox game I want to build, they cost way more money than a mobile game. So I may end up having to go that way. I'm applying to the Black Ambition Prize too, so that's Pharrell. So like if they give me $1 million, I'll take that money from Pharrell. So I'm very picky about who I would want to take money from. That's why I haven't really been pursuing it. Some of them have come to me at this point. And you know, when you're not chasing something, they start coming at you. I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I'm looking for money yet. But eventually, it probably will happen. I'm just going to be careful about who I take money from.
So inevitable with the path that you're carving out for yourself, but
well,
just
it could be. I mean, if the
taking it
game
with
blows
discernment.
up, then I don't have to do nothing. Like
Yeah.
these games, I don't think people know. I know people don't know how much these games make. These Roblox games, you give your kids Roblox cards and they go spend it like in a day. Some of those games, I think Twilight Daycare or something, like they were getting like 10 million a month. There's thousands of kids all over the world who play these games at every moment of every day, and they have Robux, and they spend them like candy, like water. And those games are like pulling in so much money. Roblox is such a rich company. No one pays attention to this, but that's what I'm saying. Like my game in Roblox, like I'm developing it in a way to where I play it a lot with my nephews, so I know what they like. So I'm developing it to where there's ways of them to spend money, so I know that the game is profitable. But yeah, they're making crazy amounts of money on these games. 10
million a month.
Yeah, and these games don't look like the greatest thing. Like these kids, they're not picky about how the games look. They don't care. If it's fun, then they want to go to this experience, and they spend money like crazy. So it has y'all's kids in a chokehold.
Not a chokehold.
And there's none of us that are in there getting the money. It's like all these companies, and this is the thing, Roblox still hasn't talked to me. I've been reaching out to them. They won't talk to me.
As you said, though, once you put something out there and it's successful, right, people tend to want to come to you. Any more questions from the audience? Oh, one more.
Yeah, I had a quick question. So it's like kind of related to what you've been talking about, and I found started a company, and it's like what you said, you don't want to take money from people because it creates an obligation and kind of taints the vision and stuff like that. And I noticed you were talking about grants. So what's like a great method for like looking for grants, applying for grants, and making sure that you get the grant as well?
You have to know your company. You have to know your story. You have to tell your story in a convincing way. You have to tell your story in a way that's compelling. This year, this year I've gotten maybe $41,000 in grants. The $30,000 was for my documentary. So with that one, I didn't even show them the video clips of the footage that we have. I just wrote what this was about, and that's how I won the grant. And that grant, well, it kind of comes from a venture capital company because it came through a nonprofit called The Big We, but The Big We is funded by Melinda Gates, her Pivotal Ventures company. So they gave them this nonprofit money to give to women, it's black women specifically, or women of color to tell their stories. So that I got it in an indirect way. I would take money from her directly. So there's certain people I'll take money from, but right now,
So if she's listening
until we
to
meet.
this,
Well, I thanked her, so she knows who's the women. There's only like
Yeah.
4 or 5 or 6 of us, I
Oh,
think.
wow,
So
okay.
she knows that her company gave this money, and these are the stories been told. So I think when the documentary comes out, she'll definitely see it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
I'm
love
in good
that.
hands.
Being on the radar. I
Yeah.
love that.
I have a second part to that question, if y'all don't mind. So like, what does like the process look like? What all do you need in order to apply for like a typical grant?
Just you and your pen.
Okay.
Your computer. I mean, some of them, it gets intense. Some of them, like the Pepperdine one that I had to do, they wanted you to have your tax stuff there with you. You had to like do all this math where I had to like divide how much money I made by $1 million to give them a decimal point of this. Their application was just really intense. So some of them want all this information. Some of them is just like a 1 page that you just kind of put in what your company's doing, why. And it sounds easy, but no, you really have to be telling it. Like there's thousands of other people that are applying to this grant. So you really have to be compelling and telling why your why. So for me, it's like, this ain't gonna happen if I don't do it. Like since '85, they ain't doing no games with women. So if we don't do this now, it may not ever get done. They don't care about women. So there was one grant I had to do a video for, and they were just like, why do you want to do this now? And it's just like, because they don't care about women. So I'm the woman. What they say with Drake, I'm the boy, I'm the woman, I'm the girl that has to do this right now. If you don't give me the money, this may not happen. They don't care about women. They're not checking for women. So if I come up and if I'm successful, then they'll pay attention. But until then, they don't see value in making games that feature women as the lead. And then when there is something that shows a woman, you'll notice all of the uproar. The men go crazy. There's all this like, why do we need a woman? And that's what has happened with my campaign. I did a campaign last year to raise money for my game. This guy was like, what do black women belong in gaming? Like, what are y'all gonna do a hair game, a hair store game? And I was just like, what?
A hair store
And so
game.
I posted that. I took his comment and posted it on my LinkedIn, and I have a lot of gaming people that I know, like really high up in gaming, and so that was like the post that's gotten over 14,000 people saw it. There was like 100 comments. I ain't never posted nothing online that's went that viral. But because that guy was like really being mean in what he was saying about black women in gaming, everybody had something to say. Guys were willing to help me. I had a call with this one guy in the gaming. I'm just like, oh wow. So
wow.
all this negativity. But when I wanted to talk to Roblox, I just wanted to have a conversation. No one would call me back. But because this guy is over here clowning women and doesn't think that women are valued, they don't belong in gaming, now everybody comes along. So it's like negativity sells online. So if you're trying to raise money or something, try to find somebody to say something crazy about your company. And I'm literally like, I raised an extra $1,000 because of that dude's comments. This one woman was like, I was selling hoodies. I don't even want a hoodie, just keep it. She'd be like, only like $500. I was like, oh.
I've never heard that strategy before, but
Listen.
that's a new one. That is a new one.
It's what's happening now here in East Street. Serious.
All right. Any more questions? No? Oh, we do have one more.
Where you at?
I think this may be our last question.
Thank you for sharing that out of the normal tip. I think that there can be a negative connotation to people thinking about black-owned businesses or even black-owned businesses wanting to say that they're black-owned. Can you speak to that? Because I feel like it should be a positive thing, but I think sometimes we internalize that, or like we let other people think that highlighting that something is black-owned or saying that you're black-owned is kind of like begging, and I think that's incorrect.
Yeah, like before the pandemic, before George Floyd, I actually had friends who wouldn't say that their company was black. On their website, it would be kind of like, you look at their website and be like, okay, who owns this? Because they didn't have any kind of thing. But after George Floyd and all that money started flowing, it was like black power on the front page of the websites. Everybody was black all of a sudden. People that weren't black were saying they were black.
Oh, wow.
I mean, literally, they had to like they have to do this thing now if you get the minority business certifications where you have to show your face or whatever, because there were businesses that were trying to claim they were black so they can get the money. So now everybody wants to be black. Black is in. For me, my name is Shequeta, so ain't nobody gonna mistake me for not being anything other than black. The only thing I don't have is the booty, but hey, it's what happens.
Shequeta.
Seriously, that's all I don't have. I have everything else. But when my name goes out there, they automatically know. And wherever I go, that follows me. So it's like, for me, my whole company is about Black women. So there's no hiding from it for me. I have to face it on. So I don't get a chance to put on my website and act like I'm somebody else. I've never been able to do that because my basis, the fundamentals of my company is of creating positive representation for Black women in comics, films, and games. That's my whole mission statement. So I wear it like a flag. I wear it everywhere I go. I was going to Korea to show them a Black woman. They were taking pictures of us because we were Black, and they hadn't seen a Black woman there before. So it's like, yeah, now it's an in thing to do, but before George Floyd, a lot of people were hiding. They were in like the shadows because they were scared that if they put that they were a Black company, they wouldn't make any profits. But after that happened, everybody came running.
All right. Thank you so much, Shequeta.
Thank you.
Thank you
for having us. Thank you guys for coming.
thank you for taking the time to share your stories with us. And thank you to the audience for joining us tonight and your participation. I really loved the energy. It was fantastic. So we don't want our conversation or our relationship to end tonight. So we would love for you to join our community. You can find us at foundersinternationalnetwork.org, where you can also get access to our previous episodes and also look out and hear news and sign up for our newsletter so you can hear about our upcoming season this June. You can also follow us on the socials, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. And last but certainly not least, we'd appreciate your support. We really are so committed to telling these stories and to sharing them, not only from here in the US, but across the world. So if you loved what you heard tonight, what you've seen tonight, and if you want to hear more stories, you want to see more of these events, we'd really love if you could scan that QR code and show us your support. It'd be very much appreciated. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.